Welcome to the Political Parties Podcast. This podcast will introduce the basics about how political parties function in the United States. First, it's important to understand what a political party is. The definition of a political party is a group of people with similar viewpoints who try to influence the government by getting policies passed that support their points of view. In order to influence the government, parties must nominate and support candidates whose views align with that of the party. Once candidates are elected to office, these representatives will often work to propose and get laws passed that reflect the party's ideologies. Representatives are not required to vote according to party lines, meaning the same way as other members of their party. However, given the similar ideology of party members, this often happens. In the U.S., we have a two-party system. This is due to the structure of our political system and how we elect candidates. In our two-party system, the two major parties are the Democrats, as shown on the left, and the Republicans, as shown on the right. Another name to which the Republican Party is referred is the GOP, which stands for Grand Old Party. Other parties have logos as well. You will see some of those later on in the podcast. Parties state their ideology on a party platform. Each party platform is a document that outlines and explains the party's beliefs on many policy issues. This serves as a way for individuals and politicians to figure out which party their views best reflect. People often don't agree with every issue their political party takes a stance on, but rather on the majority of them. This is for a variety of reasons. One being that some people are more socially conservative but more economically liberal, or vice versa. They therefore choose party affiliation based on which issues they value more. Another reason that people might not support every issue on a platform is that the parties have national platforms, but yet our country has a lot of regional differences that affect their opinions on certain issues. Because political parties compete for members, they are very biased. Party members are unsurprisingly influenced by their own perspectives and do what they can to convince others to agree with them. Parties use persuasion to get their members to support the causes they feel are most important. They spend millions of dollars trying to convince people to support their party and not support the other. They do this through campaign advertising. They take out ads on television, radio, social media, and newspapers, as well as create products to persuade people. It's important to be aware that there is also a lot of advertising that seems as if it comes from a political party, but in reality comes from interest groups, groups that support the political party, but are not affiliated with them. While political parties are very powerful in our country, a lot of voters have become frustrated with the parties. There are multiple reasons for this. One reason is because of the perceived lack of willingness for politicians from the two parties to compromise. Another is the negative association with certain politicians who are well-known members of a party. Also, many people don't feel their beliefs clearly fit into one party over the other. In fact, while this number has slightly decreased in the past year and doesn't actually reflect official party affiliation, 40% of voters prefer to identify as independent. Other data shows us that there are more people who identify as leaning towards one party over another who may still officially identify as independent. The data above shows an interesting trend, at least through the end of 2017, with regards to party affiliation. The good and the bad news for both political parties is that they are pretty much viewed poorly at the same rates. This isn't a surprise, since Democrats and Republicans often see the other party in a negative light. This would be in addition to all the independents who might not like either party. As shown in this political cartoon, there is also a perception that the parties are too busy blaming each other for America's problems than actually doing stuff to help Americans. There are many other reasons that political parties have become less popular in recent years, but whatever the reason is, party membership and affiliation has declined. Now the cartoon mentions registering as an independent, but what that means is that the person is simply not a member of any political party. Many independent voters are more moderate than those who are members of political parties. They indeed tend to fall more towards the center of the political spectrum. However, as more and more people become frustrated with the major political parties, or as the parties just get a bad reputation, many liberals and conservatives alike may choose to identify as independents regardless of whether they are more moderate in their beliefs. Regardless of ideology, independents feel less pressured to vote for a certain person just because of party affiliation. In reality, people, even members of political parties, can and do vote for candidates who are members of the opposite party. And in fact, there are independents who always vote for one party over another. However, because many independents do go back and forth between parties of candidates they vote for, they hold a lot of power when it comes to major elections. To reiterate, Americans seem to be frustrated over the political parties across the board. Because of this, appealing to independent voters is something many candidates need to do in order to win state and national elections. I've used the word candidate quite a bit already, but it's important to understand that I am just talking about those individuals running for public office and have been speaking generally about candidates in local, state, and national elections. When we look to the largest election, it is the presidential one. Presidential candidates are not immune from being disliked, often by members of the opposing party. As of September 2019, President Trump's approval rating among Democrats is only 8%, while the vast majority of Republicans do approve of the job he's doing. When candidates are running for office, they will first have their primary election to be the person nominated to represent the political party for that election. You will learn about party primaries, however, at another time. What's important to know here is that a political party officially endorses a candidate who is running for an election. Through officially endorsing a candidate, the candidate gets lots of help and resources from the political party so that they have the best chance of winning the general election. Going back to how unpopular political parties are, it's pretty interesting that very few Americans vote for other candidates from other parties. The question now is, why do people vote for parties and candidates if they don't like them? Well, the answer is complicated, but for many it boils down to one thing. It is nearly impossible for a candidate to win a major election while not being a member of one of the two major parties. This is because the candidate with the most votes wins the election, and it is very rare that someone without the resources of a political party behind them can gain enough support to win. Other countries have a different system of voting that relies on what's called proportional representation. But we're not going to focus on that because our government, the US government, exists using a winner-take-all system. Thus, parties other than the two other ones are known as third parties. Plenty of them exist. The Green and Libertarian parties are the biggest parties in the United States that are third parties, but they are tiny in comparison to the Democratic and Republican ones. In fact, in many elections, libertarians, due to being economically conservative, will often endorse the Republican candidate, and Green Party members, due to being both socially and economically very liberal, will often vote for the Democratic candidate. Again, this is because people's ideology may better align with a third party, but at the end of the day, people often vote for a candidate they think has some chance of winning. There are plenty of other parties, but none have representation on the national level. More and more Americans want to see a third party to compete with the two major ones because many feel that the parties don't do an adequate job of representing the American people. This is especially true among millennials and younger voters in general. Returning to the discussion surrounding third-party candidates, this data demonstrates that despite all the talk of a need for a third party, the people who talk of this need still vote for the main party candidates. In fact, very few people who ran against Trump and Clinton were known in 2016. Johnson and Stein from the Libertarian and Green parties were actually the ones who were running respectively with the other two candidates. Johnson and Stein did better among younger voters, but even among that group of people, third parties still accounted for 9% of the vote. While there is no third-party representation in Congress, and it is also very rare at the state level as well, this does not mean that all politicians are either Democrats or Republicans. This is because some people choose to run without the backing of any political party. People run as independents for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's because they've left their political parties due to ideological shifts or because they didn't win the party's nomination, but yet have had a large support due to their history as an elected official. Other times, they've never been a member of a political party. This is considered rare, but does occasionally happen. In Congress, independents still have to choose sides, meaning they still need to decide which party they are going to caucus or cooperate with the most. Like any politicians, though, they can vote however they want on any bill at any time, regardless of party membership. Hopefully you've learned something about how political parties and how they work. That's all for now. Thanks for listening.